Hello, hello. Today we are going to introduce the note-taking assignment. And to summarize the entire note-taking assignment in just a sentence there, it's to take notes while listening to the news, lectures, or other information sources, mostly news and lectures. So that's what you're gonna be doing. You'll be listening to the news, you'll be listening to lectures, and taking notes, okay? The rest of this introduction is taking that and just filling in the details, okay? So what do you need to do? First, you'll be taking notes while listening to the assigned sources. You'll have some freedom within those sources and some things that are some directives, things you have to follow. But it must be in English. You're not listening in your language and translating it into English to take notes. It also must be spoken. It's not that you read the newspaper and then summarize it. That may sound obvious, but I had a student that I really believe was not trying to cheat. They just were confused that was doing that. So I made sure that's clear. But the biggest point on that, it must be spoken, which can be an issue that you may not realize, is subtitles. Sometimes things have subtitles. The TED Talks that we'll be listening to, they do have subtitles available, and you want to make sure to turn those subtitles off. Some of the news things that are available for news have transcripts available where you can read along. I know that. It's there. Don't use them. And that will make it easier. Sure, you can just read it, but that's not what we're practicing. If you're using the subtitles, you'll be listening with your eyes. You won't be listening with your ears. It's not really practicing your listening. Now, will you get more details? Sure, I suppose you will. Will your spelling be better? Yeah, it's written right in front of you. But we don't want to do that. We want to practice your listening with your ears, thinking about what's being said to process what to write, and writing it all at the same time. So that's what you'll be doing, is listening, thinking, writing all at the same time. And if you have those subtitles on, it's a problem. As an example on that, and I'll refer to this later, I don't know if any of you have ever traveled to another country before where you did not know the language at all. It might have been when you came to the US, it might have been somewhere else. For me, I used to live in China. I went to a conference in Thailand. I didn't speak a word of Thai, and some other places as well. When I get there, I don't know a word of the language. And I've turned the TV on just to see what it's like. And even though I don't understand anything they're saying, and you may have had this situation if you've watched TV in a language you don't know at all, you can still understand sort of what they're saying, especially if there's a lot of pictures, like the news. You can watch it and sort of understand, but even just people chatting, you can get some main ideas because you're listening with your eyes. Now, if you're reading body language, that's normal. Most of communication is body language and not actual verbal. But if you're reading a transcript or subtitles, that's ruining your listening practice, okay? So continuing on, you'll see it highlighted in blue there. You're going to take notes while listening, okay? Don't listen first and then wait till it's done or pause it and write down the main ideas, okay? You are listening and writing your notes at the exact same time. And I put it in bold. Do not stop the recording while writing your notes. You need to practice taking notes while listening. And this is going to practice your ability to listen, think, process, and write all at the same time. Some people will do well at that right from the beginning of the semester. Maybe you've had practice in it, whatever. But for some of you, that is really going to be a struggle. You can say, I understood it, I heard it, I understood it. But you need to not just be able to understand it, you need to be able to understand it, think about it, and write it to take your notes all at the same time. And we're going to work on ways to do that. But if you pause, it's not pushing your brain to do it. You just, if they're talking faster and you're like, I'm getting way behind, what am I going to do? Just skip something and catch up to them and keep going. If you miss something, you miss something. Don't use the subtitles, okay? Now, you do want to write as many of the details as possible. You want to get the information. However, and this is a big thing we're going to work on, you do not need to write complete sentences. Actually, I'm going to ask for you, please don't write complete sentences. You're going to be writing an outline, not paragraphs. You'll be writing maybe phrases instead of whole sentences. You want to get the information, but you don't need all the words. Okay, there's filler words, there's connectors words, what I call the grammar words. You want to get the main ideas, and we'll work on this in the class. But that's really important because then you're not writing as much, and you can actually keep up with what the person's saying with practice. Okay. Also, you're going to be writing your facts, writing the facts while you're listening to this, or at least what they say, even if it's not facts per se. You're going to be writing the information they give, not your opinions while taking notes. An example, some of your countries might show up in the news. And as you're listening to them talking about your country, you may, that is not true. What are they talking about? That's my country. I know that's not true. That's not right. Oh, they've got it wrong. Don't say, I'm not listening. I'm not taking notes. This is just wrong. Don't do that. Take your notes, write down what they say, and don't write, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. Just take the notes, okay? Now, if you want, you can put like a star next to it, because when we get to class, you're gonna bring your notes to class, and we'll get you into groups, and you will be talking with a small group of your classmates. And if you would like, you could say, here's what I heard in the news, and it's wrong. Here's how it is. Let me tell you about my country. Let me tell you what's right. That's fine. That's the time you can talk about it. You can say whatever you want about it. But when you're taking notes, just get the information. Don't write your opinions too much. Again, you can mark a little star or an X or something next to it to remind yourself that that's what you want to listen to. But okay, moving on. This assignment is due every week, unless I specifically say there's no notes due this week, which I probably will not do for the whole semester, unless I tell you that it is due every week. Now, I'm not going to remind you every week. I'm not going to say the notes are due next week. The notes are due next week. They're always due. I'm reminding you right now. They're always due, okay? If I don't say it's not due, it's due. It's always due. Okay, continuing on. What are the sources? Now, as I give these sources and how much you're supposed to be listening, this is based on a 10-week summer session, okay? If you're taking the 16-week classes, these numbers will be different, all right? So this is just an example, but the numbers here where you see like 5 TED Talks, 5 here, 5 there, that may change for your class. So when we talk at the beginning of the semester for your class, pay attention to those details. But for this video, this is what I'm going to use for an example. Is your source requirements are 5 TED Talks. Okay, TED Talks tend to be lectures, and I'll provide the link for that. Actually, you'll have a link to this whole slideshow that has, these are all links. But anyhow, again, turn off your subtitles. You're going to need to listen to 5 stories on NPR. That's NPR, All Things Considered, which I just usually abbreviate ATC, okay? And those are news, and it's all one story the entire time you're listening, usually about 5 minutes, give or take, okay? You're also going to be listening to 5 episodes of NPR News Now, which I abbreviate NN. And those are, if you listen to the radio, a lot of radio stations at the top of the hours, like at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, they'll have a brief 5-minute news update. That's what this is. It's fast, and in those 5 minutes, it might cover 7 or 8 stories. It changes a little bit from time to time how many stories there are. So it moves very quickly, and this tends to be the hardest one for students to take notes on. So if that's a challenge for you, no, it's a challenge for a lot of people. If it's easy for you, great, good for you. I'm happy for you. Now, my suggestion is to listen to 1 TED, 1 ATC, and 1 News Now every day for 5 days. The TED Talks tend to be about 15 minutes, ATC and News Now about 5 minutes each. And so it'd be about 25 minutes, give or take, they vary in length, a day for 5 days, okay? Now, there are some optional substitutions, something you can do instead of those, all right? And the major one of those is if you can find academic lectures, maybe, I think it's like Yale University puts out some of their lectures, and there's some around, but lectures that are in your major, what it is that you want to study when you graduate from the ESL program and you move on, wonderful. Let me know. Okay, contact me, say, I found these online, can I substitute them for something else? And I will almost certainly say yes. Now, I'll still have you do those 3 things, TED Talks, ATC, and the News Now, but we might say, depending on the length of the lecture that you found, we might only have you do 2 or 3 TED Talks, or 2 or 3 All Things Considered. So we'll still have you do it for the practice, but we'll change your numbers a bit. So talk to me if you find those. Same, if you have a nonfiction, not a storybook, but a nonfiction audiobook, that it's a lecture, and usually the lectures are informative, self-help books where you're growing, it's information you're taking notes on. Great, again, check with me and we can substitute some things out, okay? If you do find some other note-taking sources that you think, I want to use this would be good, talk to me. Send me information on that. We'll look at it and we'll probably be able to make some of those substitutions. Okay. So just if you find something else to be helpful, talk to me. Now, when you're taking notes, we do want you to use good note-taking skills. So what does that mean? We want you to be using phrases, not complete sentences. So when you're writing, we don't want you writing the whole sentence, just the information, phrases. Okay, now you may have a few complete sentences. That's okay. Sometimes at the beginning, there's a summary or introductory sentence that's just, it's perfect. And you write it down, great, okay? But most of your notes should not be complete sentences. Also, you're welcome to use abbreviations and symbols. Please do. It makes writing faster. For example, right now, President Trump is president, okay? And so you're going to hear his name a lot in the news, and you'll be writing it a lot. T-R-U-M-P. I know it's not that long, but it takes time. So maybe you'll just abbreviate that in your notes down to T, or T circled, or something that you'll know it means Trump, okay? Because again, his name will come up a lot, and you might need to write it, but you can abbreviate it. That also means spelling. If you're something you don't know how to spell quite correctly, don't worry. You know you want to do your best, but don't worry too much about spelling. You need to get it down quickly, and some things won't be spelled right. So organized. We do want your notes to be organized, not just written all over the paper, up and down and all over. We want it to be so you can look at them and find information quickly. Also, you should be able to catch the main idea and important details. You want to see, did you get the main idea written down and important details? Not every word, and you might miss, if there's some detail, like who cares? That doesn't matter. It's not important. You might not write that, or you may, but you don't need to. Also, it should be legible. It means it can be read. If somebody looks at it, they can read your notes. If you look at it, you should be able to read your own notes, okay? Now, are you going to be perfect at all these things right from the beginning of the semester? No. Are you going to be perfect at them at the end of the semester? No, but we want to be improving and getting better and better at taking notes. And that's a skill that develops forever. All right, here's an overview of how to format your page. So like if this is an imaginary piece of paper here on the box, all right? So what you're going to be doing is up in the corner, you're going to have your name. Please put it up in the upper right-hand corner. I've had students write it all over and I can't find it. Please put it in the upper right-hand corner. The class time that we meet for class. And the due date, when would you be turning this in to me? Okay, that's up in the upper right-hand corner. Up in the upper left-hand corner, you're going to be writing, as I mentioned, it's 5 TED, 5 ATCs, and 5 News Now for the class that I'm using as my example. So I have T, that's 5 TEDs, A, 5 All Things Considered, and it's 5 News Nows. Now, you may have several pages of notes. You only need to put this on the very first page. All right. Now, what you're going to do is you'll have that, there's a line down your paper. For some of your papers, there's already a line there, but if you want a bigger space, you can draw another line. For some of your papers, there is no line. So you can draw a line, that's fine. And what I'd like you to do is this section over here is where you're going to be taking notes. This section over on the left has other details and things. So in the note-taking section, I want you to put the title of the thing you're listening to. TED Talks all have a title. ATCs all have a title. It's All Things Considered, all have a title. News Now doesn't really have a title, so you might just put News Now. Okay, that's fine. And then you'll write your notes. All right. Over on the left, you're going to give some other information. You're going to write the date that you're listening. This is not the due date, nor is it the date that it was recorded. It might have been from a few days ago, weeks ago, or even years ago, but this is the actual source. But the date you're listening, you're going to put here, okay? The source you're going to write here. Like TED, just write TED. If it's All Things Considered, just write ATC. It lets me know where you got it from, okay? And then it's going to be how many times you listened or watched in case of TED Talks. And I am very quickly here in the semester, we want to get, the goal is that you're only listening one time and taking notes. That is the goal. However, at the beginning of the semester especially, if you took notes, like, I really just didn't get it, I need to listen again, you may listen a second time, okay, and take notes on that second time. Now, let's say you listened once. You would just write here, one time. Let's say you listened twice. You'd write 2 times. Now, I want you to be honest here. And what I mean is, let's say that you're like, I need my notes to be perfect, okay? I listened 5 times. Don't do that. But if you do, write, how many times you listen? 5 times. Let me know. It lets me see, okay, you're struggling here. I'll talk with you. I'm not here to get you, okay? I'm here to help you. And we'll see how your notes are. Sometimes people's notes are really good, but for you, you feel like it should be perfect, so you're not good enough. We'll talk that, this is really good. You don't need to do that many times, but we'll work together to figure out what's best for you. So be honest with me. That's very, very important. Also, what you can put in this column, back to that example of maybe there's a news story that you like, oh, it's wrong. I want to talk about that with my classmates. Here's where you might put some key points. Put a star there, or say, story about my country, wrong. Something to help you remember. I want to talk about this, okay? Or maybe there's a TED Talk. You thought this was a really interesting TED Talk. I want to talk about this. Put a star over there on this side, maybe a brief little bit about it to remind yourself what you want to talk about. Okay, so that's what this column is for. So notes over on the right, details on the left. So I'll give you an example. These are some notes I took while listening to a TED Talk, 5 ways to listen better. So if you listen to that one, you could take your own notes, and then you can come look at my notes if you want. And these I did listen one time. These were taken while I was listening one time. So back to this slide. I forgot to mention this TAN, what that is. After I listened to a TED Talk, okay, I would just cross off one of the T's. When I listened to another TED Talk, I'd cross off another T. Maybe I listened to an All Things Considered. I'll cross off an A. This is a tally to keep track of what you already listened to. And it also lets me quickly see it when I look at your notes, just as an overview for while I'm flipping through your notes, okay? Now, you may notice that green circle. Let's say I listened to the news now, and I listened twice, and it was hard. So I did that second time. I didn't just listen to it, I listened twice. For now, at the beginning of the semester, I do allow the students to listen to things twice. Again, I encourage you, just listen once, but if you need twice, okay. So what you can do is circle it. That lets me know that you listened twice. There's 2 of them in the circle, and then cross them off, okay? Or if I listen to a TED Talk twice, I'd circle the 2 that I did together and cross them off. Now you can only count 2. If you listen 4 times, you're not allowed, too bad. It only counts as 2, okay? But if you did 2 together, you can count it the second time, okay? So cross that off. Now, again, here's my example of my notes. My name is up here. The class time is there. The date that this is due is there. I just sort of made something up. I have my TTTTAANNN. This was for a 16-week semester, just the 4 of them. And I listened to a TED Talk, so I crossed that off after I was done. I have the title of the TED Talk, the date I listened. It was a TED Talk, and I listened 1 time. I took all my notes. Notice there's not a lot of sentences. We are losing our listening is a sentence, but a lot of it's 60% of the time. A lot of phrases, an abbreviation here, shorten the word down. I don't have a lot of symbols in here, but I do have abbreviations. Then I did put some stars. If I would like to talk about this in my group in class, so I thought this was interesting, and this was really interesting. So I put the double star, so it reminds me these are things I'd like to talk about in class, okay? So this is what your notes may look like. All right, going on, some question and answer here. How many times should I listen? Well, I already mentioned that once, but the goal is to only listen 1 time and take notes. Your notes might not be the best at the beginning, or maybe they will be, but when you know you're only going to listen once, you listen more carefully, you write more carefully. So we want to get to that 1 time to push you as quickly as we can. That being said, as I said, at the beginning of the semester, I will allow for a few weeks, maybe just one or 2 weeks, depending on if it's a 16-week or a 10-week semester or other, to listen twice, but really try to push yourself to only listen once. Yeah, so that is that. How many pages of notes should I have? Well, a common question. So this is going to be different for every student. I've had students that write really big, and I'll get a book from them, but the reality is I'm going to get a little pack of paper from most students. It's stapled together, or online class, it's not stapled out many pictures, but it's a pack of paper in there. You are welcome to write on the front and the back of the paper. That is fine. I know some reading writing doesn't always like that. This is not reading writing class. You're welcome to write on the front and the back of the paper, okay? How much time should this assignment take each week? Well, we'll look at the 10-week class here. There's 5 TED Talks, 5 ATCs, and 5 News Nows. So it's going to take the 5 TED, an hour and 15, so about 2 hours and 15 minutes a week of listening and taking notes is what it would be for the 10-week class. For the 16-week class, it's a little bit less each week, but you're spread out then over 16 weeks. So that's about how much time it should take. Now, on the due date, when this is all due, you will be in groups, as I referred to. You'll be talking with them. You'll be sharing your notes. You're not going to tell every story. There's no time. You've got 5 times 3, 15 times, let's say there's 4 people in a group. We got 60 stories there. So pick your favorite ones. Put a star next to them, the ones that you think are most interesting to talk about. And you'll be talking about it with your group, sharing your opinions, sharing some of the key details. I will collect your notes that day. For an online or for a in-class class, you'll hand me your notes. For online class, you'll be taking a picture of your notes and sending it to me on Blackboard, and I have instructions for how to do that. One thing I do like to mention is don't rewrite your notes to make them look good. I want to see the notes that you take while you're listening. I've had students do that, especially at the beginning of the semester. They think, oh, I need to be perfect. I need to be a good student. Everything needs to look perfect. So they take their notes and then they rewrite them all. That's a really good study method. If you're using this to study, great, good for you. But if you're using it for note-taking practice, we want to see how your notes are when you take. So don't take the time to rewrite them. It's not using your time for the best uses right now. On the due date, you will also complete the note-taking report. And I have another video out there, and I'll link to it in the bottom of this video that takes you to information about the note-taking, and there's a video that explains the note-taking report as well. So these are the slides that I'll usually show you on the day when you turn in your notes. And what we'll do is we'll give you a minute at the beginning of that time just to look over your notes and see what was most interesting to you, to prepare to talk with your classmates. And then we'll put this up, and I'll talk about this more later, but you're going to have a conversation with your group. This should be interesting. You're not taking your notes and reading, actually I have my notes here, and reading every word. Okay, that is boring. Your classmates will fall asleep. If you want to get the main ideas, most of your time you should be looking at your classmates, not at your notes. You want to keep it interesting, share a news story, share a lecture, talk about it. Don't share every detail. What was interesting to you? And just you'll discuss it as a group. When you're done discussing it, some groups talk about the same thing for the entire time. They just get a story that's interesting. They talk about it for 15, 20 minutes. Sometimes you talk for 5 minutes, and okay, nothing else, and someone else shares a story. Great. Each group will be a little bit different on that. So that is the note-taking assignment. It can be fun at the beginning. Sometimes it's hard, especially those news nows. But once you learn how to do it, you learn a lot. I've had people really enjoy it, especially the TED Talks. People tend to enjoy learning from so many different types of TED Talks. Well, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. That's what I'm here for, and I'm glad to do that. I'll see you in class.